Hello. Today I will be discussing about the Rostow stages of growth. It is an important topic in the development economics. And since the beginning of the 20th century, those involved with the vast field of development studies have sought to answer the question of what it means for a country to be developed. Okay? What it means for a country to be developed and why. Some countries are developed and others are not. So, in a bid to provide answer to this question, different thoughts, different theories, different models were developed to explain this phenomenon. And this type of model is a Rostow's model. And there is five stages. And the model was created in 1960. And Rostow was an American, and his study considered 15 countries, most of which were European countries. So, according to Rostow, to break the vicious circle of poverty and the development procedure or method is a linear five stages. One by one, stages stages come. So he was one of the key thinkers in the 20th century of development studies, an American economist and also a government official. So, so there are some assumptions. Development is equal to modernization. Path to development is only through capitalism and industrialization. Capitalism and industrialization. Okay, the path of development. The development actually occurs through capitalism or industrialization. Okay, development is essentially an irreversible process. It is a linear process. According to Rostow, the development is a linear process. Development process involves stage by stage. There are five stages in the Rostow's model. Development can be stimulated either by internal dynamics or external forces. With the internal dynamics, the development can be stimulated, or by the external forces, the development also can be stimulated. Economic growth is both the means and end in the process. Development is measurable through the increase in GDP. With the GDP increase in GDP, development is measured. It assumes all countries follow the same route to development. Rostow assumes all countries follow the same route to development. These all are the assumptions on the basis of the Rostow model was developed. Now, look at this field. In this field, I try to clarify the stages, Rostow's five stages of development. Here, along the horizontal axis, we measure the time. and along the vertical axis measure the level of development. So there are five stages you are seeing here. That traditional society, first stage is traditional society. Second stage is precondition for takeoff. Then there is takeoff. Next stage is drive to maturity. And the fifth one is the high mass consumption. These are the five stages. And you can find stage by stage. And there is a linear path. There is a linear development path. So at first there is this traditional society. Economic system is stationary and dominated by the agriculture. In this situation, the economic system is stationary and dominated by the agriculture. Okay, and barter system actually exists, and there is low social mobility also. The society is obviously rigid. The society is obviously rigid. Limited technology is there. In the traditional society, there is a cog in the wheel of growth for the manufacturing sector. Okay, there is the existence of limited technology causing a cog in the wheel of growth for the manufacturing sector. Feudalism is there. Feudalism is there. Landowners ruled the society. Landowners ruled the society. In one sense, you can say it is a feudalistic system. It is a feudalistic system. And one thing must remember, investment share never exceeds 5% of total economic production. Less than 5% investment is. So these are the, and also trading is subject to great risks is here. The transport for goods and raw materials are expensive. Okay, these are the key characteristics. These are the key characteristics of the traditional society. Now, the precondition for takeoff. It is also, you can say, a transitional society. Why it is a transitional society? Because the economy seems to move to transit from the purely primitive state to touch of technology. So it is a transitional society. This stage of economic growth undergoes a process of change for building up of condition for growth. In the next stage, there is a takeoff. Okay, so conditions are prepared in this stage. On that basis, the takeoff will happen. So conditions for takeoff are here. This is the precondition for takeoff stage. Investments get higher, and they invite a dynamic development. Increase in spread of technologies here. Population increases here. This stage is found its base on industrial revolution. Increase in agricultural productivity and also leads to expansion of domestic markets for manufactured goods and processed goods. Okay, there is a domestic market. There is a domestic market. So these are the basic characteristics of the precondition for takeoff in the Rostow's model of development. Now the takeoff stage. Now the takeoff stage. This represents the breakthrough stage in the history of the society. You can define the stage as an interval. You can define this stage as an interval during which rate of investment increases so that real GDP, real output. Okay, this stage takes about 2 to 3 decades, near about 20 to 30 years. Rapid self-sustained growth you can find here. Industrialization becomes a crucial phenomenon as it helps to prepare the basic structure for the structural change on a massive scale. Industrialization is very crucial in this case, okay? Because it helps to prepare the basic structure. Introduction of new productive technologies and techniques in various sectors you can find here. Reinvestment of profit earned from the foreign aid in these states. So this is one of the important states. This is one of the important states. This is the take-up stage. Rostow, in his model, mentioned different sectors of the economy: primary growth sectors, supplementary growth sectors, the derived growth sectors. And you know what is the primary growth sectors. This is the unrecognized resources, unexplored resources yield a higher growth rate in the primary growth sectors. Okay, in the primary growth sector. And supplementary growth sectors and you can find the iron, coal, and engineering industry in relation to the railroad. So this type are supplementary sectors up there. And derived growth sector, what does it mean? It means that advances in these sectors occurs in relation to growth of total real income, population, and industrial production. And derived growth growth sectors, for example, you can say the cotton textile, heavy industrial complex. These type of examples are there. According to Rostow, there are two types of takeoffs. One is domestically based takeoff, another is export based takeoff. Domestically based of takeoff means there is a demand of domestically produced goods in the economy of the country. There is market within the economy of the produced good. And export based takeoff is the opposite of the domestically based takeoff. And there is a rapid increase in the demand for locally made goods abroad. Locally made goods, demand for locally made goods abroad in case of export based takeoff. Okay, this is the takeoff. This is the takeoff stage. Now drive to maturity stage. Now drive to maturity stage. It is defined as the period when a society has successfully and effectively applied the range of modern technology to the bulk of its resources. You must remember, this is the key factor of this stage. It is defined as the period when a society has successfully and effectively applied the range of modern technology where to the bulk of its resources. Modern technology is used here in these days, drive to maturity stage. Some 10 to 20% of the national income is steadily invested here. The economy finds its place in the international economy. Okay, the in this stage, the economy finds its place in the international economy. Goods formerly imported are produced at home. Goods formerly imported, formerly are produced at home. It is important. The leading sectors will in an economy be determined by the nature of resource endowments and not only by the technology. So these are the basic characteristics of this stage, drive to maturity stage. Now, the high mass consumption. So in this stage, the balance of attention of the society is shifted from supply to demand. It is crucial. You should remember this. You should remember this. Supply to demand. In the high mass consumption stage, the society is shifted from supply to demand side. Demand is very crucial in this stage. From the problem of production to the problems of consumption is considered. Problem of consumption. Historically, you can say the United States of America, USA, were the first to reach the age of mass consumption in the 1920s, followed by the Great Britain in the 1930s and Japan and Western Europe in the 1950s. Okay, so these are the five stages of the Rostow's model. And what are the characteristics I have mentioned here? On the basis of these characteristics, you can differentiate the stages and you can understand these stages in a better way. Now, here we can compare the stages with the various economic sectors. Here the primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. What is the primary sector? Primary sector, you can say the mining, fishing, and agriculture. And what is the secondary sector? Secondary sector, you can say the finished goods, such as the factories making toys, cars, boots, clothes. This type of things are in the secondary sector, and the tertiary sector actually concerned with the offering intangible goods and services to the consumers. So as you can say banking, entertainment, IT services are the tertiary sector. So these are the three sectors. And now that this is the traditional society, preconditions for takeoff, the drive to maturity, the high mass consumption. Now look on the basis of these three sectors, we can differentiate these five stages. We compare these five stages. Primary sector, there is a vast majority. In the traditional society, primary sector is vast majority, and in the traditional society, secondary sector is very few, tertiary sector is very few. Understand what is the traditional society? In the traditional society, primary sector is very important, and secondary sector and tertiary is very few. Preconditions for takeoff, and in this stage also there is a vast majority of primary sector, but secondary sector is not very few but few, and tertiary sector is very few. And takeoff, and in the takeoff stage primary sector is decline, And secondary sector, there is rapid growth. And tertiary sector is few. Okay. The drive to maturity, their primary sector is very few, and is few, not very few. But secondary sector, secondary is stable, secondary sector is stable. But tertiary sector has a rapid growth. Growth tertiary sector rapidly grows in the drive to maturity. The importance of tertiary sector you can find here. Okay, in the fourth stage, you can find the importance of tertiary sector, and in the fifth stage, the primary sector is very few, and secondary sector declining, and tertiary sector is vast majority. As a vast majority, a very important role in actually the you can find for tertiary sector in case of fifth stage, that is the high consumption. So in this slide, I try to compare the five stages on the basis of the three sectors, that is the primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. Okay. Now, the comparison of the stages on the basis of the investment of national income. Look, there are five stages, and on the basis of investment. The traditional society, less than 5% of national income is there. And the precondition for takeoff, the above the 5% of national income. And takeoff, there is above 10% of national income. And the drive to maturity should be in between, investment should be in between 10% to 20%. And high mass consumption, the investment is more than 20%. So on the basis of the rate of investment of the national income, you can differentiate these five stages. Okay. Now, criticism. Rostow stages of economic growth is the most widely circulated and high commented pitch of economic literature in recent years. It is against the Marxist stages of feudalism, bourgeoism, capitalism, and socialism and communism. Traditional society, not essential for the growth that a country will pass through the first stage, since countries like United States, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia were born free of traditional society. This is one of the important criticism. In the Rostow's model, always there is importance of traditional society, but in practical you can find no importance of traditional society, and such type of countries are United States, Canada, etc. All countries do not develop in linear fashion, as Rostow mentioned. Stages making idea is misleading. Stage making idea is misleading also. Precondition may not precede the takeoff. Critics have argued that. Precondition do not necessarily precede the takeoff. Okay? The Rostow assumes that all countries have an equal chance to develop without regard to population size, natural resources, or location. This is also an important criticism of the Rostow's model. Overlapping in the stages. If you deeply, carefully have a look on the stages, then you can find the stages are overlapping. The stage of drive to maturity, puzzling and misleading Kuznets. No growth is purely self-sustaining or self-limiting. The stage of high mass consumption, not chronological. This is an important criticism. Idea of increase in investment is not new, as Rostow mentioned. Rostow presented the idea that increase in investment from 5% to 10% will take the economy into the takeoff stage. It is also available in the Lewis thinking. So what's new is here? So these are the criticism you can find. On the basis of this criticism, one should not conclude that the model is useless. Model is very important. Rostow's development model did not just show the gradual route from primitive to technological advancement of nations, but also attempted, though unplanned, by Rostow. It is unique as it highlights the importance of social and institutional factors in theory of economic development. There is importance of social and institutional factors. You can find the social and institutional factors in the Rostow's model. So it is important. It is a unique model. Rostow's model still sheds light on a successful path to economic development for some countries. Rostow's model still on the most widely cited development theories. It is a primary example. It is a primary example of the intersection of the geography, economics, and politics. So these are the conclusion. This is the conclusion. You cannot say that on the basis of just the criticism, it is a useless model. It is very important. It is very important. It is very important on the basis of the geography, economics, and politics. You can find the intersection here. You can find the intersection of geography, economics, and politics in the Rostow model. So it is contemporary in one sense. So I hope you understand this Rostow's model, and I try to clarify the Rostow's model in this lecture, and hope you have enjoyed it and enriched your knowledge in their way. Thank you for enjoying this lecture.